Going to present Wipe the Drive, techniques in malware persistence.
So this is Wipe the Drive, techniques in malware persistence. I'm Jake Williams. I'm a principal forensic analyst for CSR Group. I'm a SANS Forensic 610 instructor. That's not surprisingly malware. I'm doing research right now in cloud forensics, and I like to break poorly written software because who doesn't?
My name is Mark Baggett. I'm also a SANS pen tester, or a SANS instructor for the pen test curriculum, handler for the Internet Storm Center, blog on paul.com, and I'm a course author for a new SANS penetration testing course where we're going to be using Python. So it's Python for penetration testers. It's in beta, and the beta is going to be running in 30 days here in town. It's 50% off. If you want some more information, see the SANS booth.
Okay. I can attest that that's not a bad course. I worked through some of the beta stuff with Mark. Good stuff.
So today we're here to talk about Wipe the Drive. What we're saying is if you have malware on your machine, that without question the best course of action is to just wipe the drive, not depend upon forensics or software to clean up that malware on your behalf. If you get it, wipe the drive. And the reason we feel like we need to say this is because there is this bias against just wiping the drive. Both from technicians, you'll hear technicians say things like, you know what, I think the people who just wipe the drive or just want to wipe the drive and not take on the task of removing that malware, they just lack the intestinal fortitude to take on the challenge of wiping the drive, right? Or you'll hear from the business things like, wipe the drive, you're the security guy, I pay you to know how to remove malware from my systems. Why are you coming in here and telling me to wipe the drives from these systems? But what we want to do here today is to put together some techniques that are going to demonstrate that what malware or attackers who have been on your system as a result of malware infection can do is modify the configurations on your system or leave things behind that will not be detected by antivirus software, that antivirus software isn't even looking for, okay, that is going to leave some unique configuration on the machine that will allow the attacker at some point in the future to either trigger an event that will cause the reinfection of the machine or know that some event is scheduled to happen that they can take advantage of that'll cause the reinfection of that machine.
And so let me be honest, right? As a consultant who gets paid by the hour, I prefer that you don't wipe the drive. By all means, don't take my advice, right? I like repeat engagements. Again, we get paid by the hour. Love the repeat engagements. Don't wipe the, oh no, wait, do wipe the drive. Seriously, from a security perspective. So what are we doing here? Well, this really came out of basically some of the incidents that I've worked over the last year and a half here, and some experience that Mark has as well from incident handling side, and then sitting together and brainstorming and saying, hey, how can we up the ante a little bit? And so we're going to present 8 techniques today. We don't think we've got them all covered. In fact, we're positive we don't have them all covered. We want to start a repository for these things, and that's where wipethedrive.com comes in. So we're going to put detailed implementations of these techniques on the website. The slides will be up sometime this weekend. And then this presentation is really just intended to basically kick off and start the conversation. We're going to present some techniques. Hopefully you can use them from a pen testing standpoint or from certainly an incident response standpoint, things you should be looking for. Right? But again, certainly we're looking to start a good conversation about this. If you have techniques, definitely we're all ears.
And again, the details for what we're going to be talking about today will be included in a longer presentation that'll be posted on the website as well. And the techniques that we're looking at are creative ways that you can trigger the reinfection of a machine. Okay? These are techniques that after the incident response has occurred, right? So they knew viruses or some type of malware was on the system. The incident responders come in, they clean the system, right, by running antivirus software, not by wiping the drive. They clean the system, they do their memory forensics, the all-powerful memory forensics that can find
Blood for memory
everything.
forensics.
And they find nothing in memory. And then at some event later in time, preferably triggered by the attacker, okay, remotely, but perhaps it's just based upon an event that they know is going to occur, they can cause the reinfection.
So the first technique we're going to talk about is file associations. Antivirus has been all over this for years, and the .exe, the .com, the .bat. Basically, the file associations handle how the shell knows how to basically which program we're going to use to open up a file when you double click on it, right? They don't ignore things, or sorry, they do ignore things like .doc and .xls because maybe you want to install a Microsoft Office, or maybe for some reason you prefer OpenOffice and you'd rather use that, right? But they don't monitor those. You have to be able to change those. And so this one actually came from a compromise that we ran, and we ran basically went in, cleaned the malware off. I got a good repeat engagement off of it. I love repeat engagements. They would not take the server offline. The client was just anti-take the server offline. And notepad.exe is ultimately what we found was the reinfection vector. So basically, we cleaned the malware off. This was just a production server. It couldn't be taken down. Definitely, we couldn't afford the business loss. And basically, the attacker had replaced the file association for .log and .text on the server. And so at some later date and time, or some later point in time, the admin is on the box, right? So 2-3 weeks later, admin's on the box, opens up a log file. .log opens up in notepad.exe, which kicks off notepad.exe and also reinfects the machine, right? So again, we just associate malware with some normal extension, or we can get a little bit more creative with it. We can create a new extension, something like .wtd, wipe the drive, right? And then we can email a file to the admin with that extension, right? The admin double clicks on it. What gets a chance to handle the file? Our malware, right? And so we do think that file associations are going to be a good technique for secondary persistence. We've already seen it used in at least one attack.
So before you throw the shmoo ball, this one's lame, okay?
Lame,
You guys have
absolutely.
some shmoo balls? We
No.
weren't going to have this one in the presentation originally. This was not in the original list, okay?
No, I lobbied
said-
against it. I thought we were going to get booed off the stage. It's
Yep.
just...
But, so I did this post on the Internet Storm Center that talked about this technique, and what I got was email after email streaming in from people talking about these different applications that they had found on their systems that are exploitable via this vulnerability. And I'm convinced that just about every Windows system that exists today has at least one of these particular vulnerabilities that will allow you to reinfect the host. So what is the vulnerability? Well, first, it's been around since 2000. We shouldn't be dealing with this today, but sadly, we still are on every single machine. And that is you take a path like this, /program files, Microsoft Office, Office 12, PowerPoint.exe, space, myPowerPoint.pptx. How does the operating system know the difference between the document you want to open and the executable? Well, it's based upon the spaces. Spaces are delimiters, but there's spaces in my path. So how does it know that I don't want to launch /program.exe or /program files Microsoft.exe? How does it know that I want to launch PowerPoint.exe? And the answer is, it doesn't, right? It tries them all. So the first thing it tries to load is /program.exe. Then it moves down the chain until it gets it right. So you drop your malware on the hard drive under /program.exe, and you're just about on any machine today guaranteed that it's going to be launched at some point in time by applications like, I don't know, Microsoft Defender, Java, Adobe, Flash, Internet, or PowerPoint, right? All these applications are launching program.exe, and you can test this by taking a copy of Calculator, put it on your hard drive as program.exe, and just watch all the calcs that launch on your machine or launch in the background invisibly on your
Absolutely.
machine. Okay?
Yep.
There's
So-
some interesting ones we've seen as well. Go ahead.
How many of you guys are government employees or card-carrying members of the infamous CAT card? Yeah, that's cool. I wouldn't raise my hand either, but that's cool. So one of the emails that we got, and this is really interesting, actually involved some of the CAT card reader software installed on the quote-unquote golden images all around some U.S. government organizations. And so what turns out is that when you put your smart card in, then it launches the program to handle it. And so then program.exe then now not only executes at some time in the future, but at some time that we can socially engineer in the future. Maybe we socially engineer the user of the machine that we've left program.exe on, say, hey, do something that would require you to insert your CAT card at this point, or maybe they just insert their CAT card to log on, and then again, we're right back in business.
Yep, and launch it, steal their credentials, move on.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So the third technique we're going to talk about is image file execution options. Microsoft figured out a while ago that they would need potentially to basically allow users to set different execution options on a per executable basis. So this is controlled by the executable that's actually being launched. So we can set up a, say for notepad.exe, I hate to pick on Notepad, but it's on every machine and opens often enough, why not? We attach to a process that we know is going to run. Something maybe that we know runs periodically, like defrag. We know that's going to run relatively weekly, depending on your system. And we can specify a debugger option in image file execution options. And now that malware kicks off every time defrag.exe kicks off. So now picture the scenario here. We've got our incident responder, doesn't take our device, doesn't wipe the drive, says, hey, I want to give Jake repeat business by the hour, right? And so he doesn't wipe the drive. A week later, defrag.exe kicks off, launching our malware, our secondary malware, right, that checks for our primary and reinfects the box. So we can attach it to any infrequently executed process. Maybe it's something that we socially engineer the admin to run as well, as opposed to being something that's periodically executed.
All right, scheduled tasks. You guys know about scheduled tasks, right? We can take some date, time in the future, and we're going to launch a given process on an executable. You probably also know that you can take events that are showing up in the Windows event log, and you can associate tasks to occur when those things fire. That's fun, okay? How about this? Inside of a domain, all of the backup service accounts are distributed across the machine. Usernames and passwords are hard-coded on those machines. I create a scheduled task on the domain controller that when there is a failed logon attempt by the backup exec account, or excuse me, backup service account, whatever software you might be using, that we're going to fire off a process that perhaps creates a new domain admin. You come in, you clean up the infection, okay? You didn't wipe the drives, you just ran your antivirus software, but these scheduled tasks are left behind, okay? At some point in the future, when I want to get back on the system, net use host, username, backup account, password, incorrect password. It triggers a failed login attempt by the backup account, which never occurs under normal circumstances. Fires off my malware, I get reinfected. Or we need to do it remotely. How many people have RDP services available through your firewalls? Right. Yes. All right, you're all lying. Okay?
And so something that's neat is we don't have to tie it from the RDP standpoint to the actual account name that's being locked out, right? Or that we're trying to get a failed login on.
Yeah,
we
so
could
RDP
tie it
doesn't have anything to do with backups, but
right,
we
absolutely
just
not. Right, but we can even do something a little more creative, right? We've got RDP, as we all know from the RDP logs, it shows the host name that you tried to RDP from. We can tie it to that as well.
Yep.
All right, so we can get pretty creative here from a remote retriggering standpoint.
And the custom options in there allow you to define XPaths, where you can define filters, basically, on data elements. So things such as a given host name showing up in the event log can be used to trigger your malware. And then I did a post on paul.com about 6 months ago on how to use event tracing for Windows to steal SSL cookies, SSL usernames, and passwords out of event logs on systems. So basically on the Windows operating system, you have about 650 different event trace providers. And these are providers that generate event logs, but they're not event logs that show up in the event viewer. They just are logged elsewhere in the system. You can associate, or you can define a service trigger that based upon any one of those events, you can have it fire off a service. So start your service. This is how the Windows operating system does things like, start the TCP stack whenever a network is present. And there are thousands and thousands of options when it comes to defining these event triggers and what the things that are logged in there. I think there's a lot of options this is where a lot of interesting things can be done, such as when a given USB device is on a machine, you can fire off a service. How about these? When a given host name is resolved, right? So when a browser goes to a specific web page, or when I email in an HTML document that has an image tag that goes off to a specified domain. Whenever I see that domain name showing up in the logs from one of these event trace providers, fire off my malware. Or perhaps it's based upon the physical presence of a physical network. So when the device is plugged into a given SCADA network, or taken off the business NAN and plugged into a separated business segment, then we fire off the executables. Or perhaps when it's removed from the business network to prevent forensics from occurring, we fire off the malware there. I also like the option of doing it based upon wireless networks. So the malware fires in the presence of a specific SSID. So they've removed your malware from the system. At a later point in time when you want to reinfect the organization, you just come into range of the machines that have these event trace provider monitors that will fire off the malware because your wireless access point is now within range. They detect it and they launch the malware. Or you could even do this with a bring your own device. In fact, a machine at home, when the machine at home is brought into the presence of the business network, then it fires off the malware.
So service failovers is the next technique we'll talk about. Service failovers are all kinds of cool. We can take an existing service, a legitimate service. I think every forensic professional in here knows You got to go through the services. You have to look. Malware likes to persist as services. We're not introducing that. We're looking at using an actual service failover. So we want to piggyback on an existing service, maybe even something cool like antivirus, right? That's a big win. You always like attacking, or I always like to attack the antivirus. But so we can set the services basically with recovery actions that happen when services fail. Now all we have to do is guarantee that the service is going to fail, right? We can do something creative like make the service dependent on our primary malware. And then when our primary malware is removed by the incident responder, the service fails and it kicks off our secondary malware, we're right back on the box, right? Well, that's an immediate thing, and that may get me caught by a really good incident responder. I mean, I don't want to be that, I don't want to be that hard up there, but what I can do is then let's forget about the whole dependency thing. Go ahead and put that in your back pocket, but let's forget about the dependency thing. And maybe I want to set it just so when the service fails, but now I have to depend on a service failing. Let's see. How many of you guys have done pen tests this year? Yeah, half the room, I'm sure, right? MS-1220, anybody find any boxes still vulnerable to MS-1220? Yeah, I can't go anywhere and not find boxes still vulnerable to MS-1220, right? So that's the RDP service. I send a packet, causes the RDP service to fail, malware back in business. We're right back on the box.
And everybody knows to check the services, but are you checking for the recovery options to see whether or not there's executables set to fire in there?
Yeah, and let's not forget, from a recovery option standpoint, this is another place that's ripe. We have a custom startup.cm. Is it custom startup or custom recovery? Doesn't matter. Microsoft's already configured a number of these for you. And it's interesting. They say, hey, go run this command. This command happens to not already be on the box. It's like Microsoft woke up one day and said, hey, we're going to set up a bunch of service failover providers, and here's a nice box that you can just put malware in, right? We haven't put anything there. You don't have to replace anything. You don't have to worry about system file checking. Just go stick something here, and we'll execute it anytime service fails. They're pre-custom configured for you.
So to be clear, there's at least 2 services that are defined on Windows boxes that if that service fails, it will launch a script on your host. And today that script doesn't exist, but it's already configured to launch that script. You put the script there, and when that service fails, it's going to launch that script for you.
And there meaning anywhere in your path, right? So the next technique we'll talk about is Win logon events. I think this one's really awesome because, again, it's from basically from a counter-forensic standpoint, it kind of screws up my methodology. I love this whole memory capture thing, and this really screws it up. And so Microsoft decided, again, that you may need to basically execute some code on some Win logon event, something like a log on, a log off, or maybe even a shutdown event. And so we really, really like the shutdown event because that allows us to run code as the machine is shutting down. And as the machine is shutting down, guess who can't run forensics tools? Right, absolutely. So we like that. And so what we do, unfortunately, though, this causes our code to get loaded up on boot. Right? So when we use this technique, Win logon is going to load some code as soon as the machine boots. So what we've done here is we've taken to loading only a bootstrap process. And all it does, essentially, or a bootstrap DLL, all it does is loads our malicious DLL that checks for our persistence during shutdown. So now if somebody takes a memory capture during normal operations, good to go. There's nothing to see here. Just load a library. That happens thousands of times, all over memory. So again, what's really cool about this, again, is that it's only firing on machine shutdown. There's no forensic tools that can be run. Memory forensics is going to miss the real payload.
All right, this last technique is the use of bits admin. You probably know about bits admin. Bits admin is used to, so bits is used by Windows Update to download your updates for Microsoft install those. Bits admin is an admin utility that will allow you to manage those updates. You can use bits admin as a command line wget on Windows to download executables. You can also specify options on bits admin to tell it to retry if it fails to download every, say, 24 hours. And when it does successfully download, execute the program. So I go into bits admin and I just schedule it to download malware from a predefined URL, which there is no malware there today. Retry it every 24 hours, and when you successfully download it, execute the code. So go away, you remove you clean up the hard drive, right, by formatting it, right? No, you just installed the antivirus software. Does your antivirus software check your bits admin queue?
Nope.
No,
Do you check your bits admin queue? Not
Will
today.
Tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah. So
not today, you will tomorrow.
a scheduled job in your bits admin fires, it launches, downloads the system. Okay, so we have a demo here, but I think, how long do we have? 2 minutes? All right.
3-4 minutes. Okay,
All right, so let's just show you this real quick and just launch it.
Sure. Yeah. So as Mark's getting ready to go here, we originally said, hey, we're going to produce a script. We're going to set up a script that's going to detect all this stuff. And as we were working through, we realized that on an average light load system, this produces somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 megabytes of textual output to check for all this stuff. And we said, hey, we would like to go through and figure out what good looks like so we can start whitelisting. And then we realized, hey, that's a bad plan, right? We don't ever want to say your stuff is good when indeed it is not good. We would rather just do data collection and then let you analyze. You have to know what good looks like. Good is going to vary depending on, system to system. So the good news is that despite the fact that we can't do the analysis for you, we are doing the collection and we'll even do the remediation for you.
So we do have an awesome remediation technique. So here, this is a script that we'll release that will detect when any of these methods that we use are in use and remediate them. Okay, you ready? So we'll run malware check.
Yep.
All right,
Found
one. I have a program.exe on my machine. Would you like to remediate this now?
Right. So again, I mean, all laughing aside, right? We contend that we're not that smart. We came up with these 8, right? We've seen a lot of these already used, and we think there are a lot more out there. Right, so laying all joking aside, that format C drive, that is the remediation, right? I don't think as a forensics professional that I'm smart enough, obviously I'm checking for these things now, right? But I don't think that I'm smart enough to beat every attacker out there, right? I'm gonna continue to recommend to clients, once you're owned, right? What happened?
I was just hitting no.
Oh, you
I didn't
no,
want to format my
okay,
hard
good.
drive.
No, that's a good idea, yes. So, I mean, again, I'm going to continue to recommend to clients that they reinstall the system from scratch. So
as I hope we've stirred the pot, as you come up with other ideas based upon event logs and things like that, send them our way. We'll give you full credit on these, make sure that they get posted. But as we collect up these ideas, we'll be posting these with full credit on wipethedrive.com. And there's our Twitter handles if you're interested.
yeah. And again, we'll have this stuff posted sometime this weekend. Again, we really appreciate your time. Definitely interested to hear better ideas here, or potentially different ideas for malware persistence. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks.